This week on Christian World News, a targeted attack in Washington, D.C. A Jewish couple is shot to death outside a museum, how it's affected Jews worldwide, and a Messianic community in Israel.
Plus, signs of revival from South Carolina to the California coast. See how God is reviving the church and people are putting their faith in Jesus.
And for the first time since the Cold War, the Navy is expanding its chaplain corps. See what's behind this new push for spiritual readiness. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Christian World News. I'm George Thomas.
And I'm Wendy Griffith. The murders of 2 Israeli embassy workers in Washington, D.C. shocked the world this week. Authorities are investigating the attack as an act of terrorism.
We are learning more about the victims as the global Jewish community mourns their deaths. The Messianic community in Israel is also grieving. CBN's Kelly Wright reports.
The killing of a young Jewish couple, staffers at the Israeli embassy in Washington, has shocked the world. The suspect is charged with the murder of foreign officials. Court documents reveal the shooting was captured on surveillance video outside the museum. It reportedly shows Elias Rodriguez firing at the victims several times. After they fell to the ground, he then walked into the museum where he turned himself into police, telling them he did it for Palestine and Gaza. U.S. Attorney for D.C., Janine Pirro, told reporters Rodriguez also faces charges of hate crimes and terrorism.
Violence against anyone based on their religion is an act of cowardice. It is not an act of a hero. It is the kind of case that we will vigorously pursue. Anti-Semitism will not be tolerated, especially in the nation's capital.
The victims were planning to be engaged in Jerusalem next week. Both were dedicated to working towards building peace for Christians, Jews, and Muslims in the Middle East. Yaron made Aliyah to Israel at age 16 and served in the military. Born to a Jewish father and Christian mother, he was a member of Jerusalem's Messianic Christian community. Vanessa Mistretta, a member of his congregation in Jerusalem, spoke with CBN News.
He had a strong friend group. They were all just super close and loved God and loved Yeshua and just were passionate about really making an impact.
He talked about his love for his family and Sarah.
He always had a smile on his face and just was a peaceful guy that loved people well. And we all know that he loved Sarah. And, you know, I know that his family was looking forward to having him back here next week and to visit and to propose. And it's just really devastating.
Sarah Milgram was from Overland Park, Kansas, and involved with the local Jewish community. She graduated from the University of Kansas. At a vigil in her honor, a friend and former college roommate shared how Sarah advocated for reaching across political and religious divides, for brokering peace. The fact that the tragic murder of the 2 Israeli embassy employees happened in the United States heightens the concern over the rising cases of Jewish hate, especially on college campuses. The Times of Israel reports a surge of 340% in acts of global anti-Semitism.
2 young souls murdered, Yaron and Sarah. We are brokenhearted for them and for their families. We are brokenhearted for all Jews in America who don't feel safe in this moment.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered the increase of security at embassies worldwide. And here in D.C., police have heightened their presence around local faith institutions. At the White House, Kelly Wright, CBN News.
Thanks, Kelly. Vanessa Mistretta is a member of Yaron Lashinki's congregation in Jerusalem. She spoke with CBN's Raj Nair about the impact of this attack on their community.
First off, I'm just so incredibly sorry, sis. How are you processing this horrific news?
Yeah, it was devastating to wake up to. We all woke up to the reality of knowing that 2 people were murdered last night in Washington, D.C., and then you wake up to finding out that you know them and know their family. And it was really difficult. I have a WhatsApp group with our staff with Firm, and you had so many people telling stories about how they grew up with him and know him. And it's heartbreaking, to recognize you have this young guy who was super passionate about being an advocate for Israel and was in DC really to be able to just share about his love for Israel and who he is as an Israeli. And then, just out of nowhere gets murdered for being at an event. It's been an extremely heavy day and extremely heartbreaking to think about the grief that his parents and his siblings must be experiencing and all of his friends. And it's just, it's really, really overwhelming.
So the reports are that, they were weeks away from getting engaged in Jerusalem. I know I cover a lot of heavy stories, but this one is, anyway, I'm not going to let myself go there right now. But as a Messianic believer, it's a small community, and you lead an organization that's really active. It's called Firm, the Fellowship of Israel-Related Ministries. Correct me if I'm wrong. How has kind of already answered this, but how has the Messianic community in Israel, I guess the word, been handling this just horrific news?
Yeah, well, first of all, communication is everything. So we've got, our phones are blowing up with all the different groups that we're on. My congregation also is spreading the news and talking about how we can support his family and to, come over to his parents' house and to make them meals and all of that. And so there's the support. But I think just as a Messianic community, it brings us together because it's one of our own. He was a guy with just a lot of passion. And when we hear about this as the Messianic body, we just feel like, it's one of us. It's one of our own. I was putting my babies down to bed tonight. And you just think about it. You think, like, my boys are in the Lord's hands. And who knows what's going to happen with any of our lives. And we're here in a war zone right now. So I was in my bomb shelter today, as many people around the area were. We've been multiple times recently, and you just know and trust the Lord. We trust that God has a plan and a purpose, and our days are numbered. But that every day that we live, we want to glorify God and share of his love and help people to know that as hard as it is, we can have hope in him.
What do you think this says about the current state of anti-Semitism in the world?
It is deeply, deeply shocking to me that this happened on American soil. Like I said, we're in a war zone, so my friend's son was killed in Gaza, and I have another friend whose nephew was killed, right after the war started, and we're still in an active war. So people dying here, it's part of that. But when you realize that people are dying around the world because they're Jewish, because of anti-Semitism rising, it's a whole nother level. As an American immigrant, it concerns me for all of my friends and family who are still in America and around the world who are Jewish. And just because they're Jewish, they have to walk outside and be aware. I have to think about that when I travel with my kids and they call me Ima and they call my husband Abba. And I think, like, who's listening? And what does this actually mean for the reality of people around the world? It's discouraging in so many ways. And as a believer in Yeshua, I know the end of the story, and I know that God has a plan and a purpose, and he's faithful to his word, and he's faithful to Israel, and he's faithful to us as Jewish people. But walking it out and walking out the devastation of what this means for our people and the fear that it potentially brings on our people around the world is hard. It's really difficult to live in that and to carry that.
Vanessa, you are a gem, and so is your husband. I'm so thankful for the work that you're doing. Thank you for this time. We are praying for you. God bless you, my friend.
Thank you. Bless you too.
Up next, from signs of revival in South Carolina to mass baptisms in California. See how God is on the move in America. Welcome back to Christian World News. A move of God is stirring in upstate South Carolina.
Yeah, locals are calling it the beginning of a revival. It's bringing churches from across the state together for a big crusade in June.
I believe you died for me.
Evangelist Jacob Ebersol of World Harvest Ministry says something special is happening in Upstate South Carolina.
What's happening right now is something that we couldn't even dream or imagine. We give all glory to God. People from all the way from Greenville, Spartanburg, Anderson, Gaffney, honestly, all the way to Myrtle Beach and even into other states, North Carolina, are getting word of this crusade that is coming June 6th, 7th, and 8th.
For 2 years, Ebersol's been holding events to inspire and equip the local church for this 3-day gospel outreach that he says is stoking the fires of revival.
People are getting saved in the highways and the byways, in the prisons, but not only getting saved, going on mission, getting plane tickets to some of our crusades overseas. You know, there's been prophetic words that the upstate of South Carolina would be a light unto the nations, and we are starting to step into that now.
Ebersol, an international evangelist who's preached all over the world, said it was time to shine the light of Christ in his hometown.
The event starts that night, June 6th at 7, but every night, starting at 5:30, we're going to feed the city. We're trying to feed 3,000 to 4,000 people per night. It's something that the churches have come together to pull off. It's a massive undertaking. If you want to be a part of the gospel choir, come early every night before 7, and we're going to worship together.
And what's so unique about this event is the unity. Congregations, big and small, crossing racial and denominational lines to preach the gospel.
Literally, churches from Spartanburg County, the inner city, where the crusade's going to happen, have come together. All different backgrounds, denominations, breaking down racial barriers. It's the Lord doing it, but it's definitely been something that we've worked very hard for.
Their main goal, to see as many people come to Jesus as possible. And Jacob, you're not finished after Spartanburg. What happens after that?
So after Spartanburg, we're heading to the capital of South Carolina. And after that, we plan on hitting the 12 major cities all across the state. We're not stopping in Spartanburg. It's go time.
It's go time. I love that. But they've been preparing for this big outreach or this crusade, they're calling it, for 2 years at least. And I like that it's part of they're encompassing North Myrtle Beach or Myrtle Beach, because that's, as you know, that's one of my favorite places. And so glory to God. We'll see. Awesome. We'll keep in touch with them. Yeah. Well, thousands of people across America are getting baptized. The numbers are due to hundreds of churches coming together in unity.
CBN's Brody Carter reports about this growing movement, how it's pushing a nationwide effort.
With everybody that's here.
But what we believe is what's starting in Southern California is going to go to the ends of the earth.
On the shores of Huntington Beach, a modern-day revival led to the largest single-day water baptism in American history. More than 7,700 people took the plunge in early May, publicly declaring their faith in Jesus.
There was a guy getting baptized with a house arrest ankle brace on his leg. I saw homeless people that got baptized. I saw people in wheelchairs that they pushed to the sand, carried them in there, baptized and brought them back. Old, young, all different ethnicities, all different political persuasions. It was a beautiful thing to see what Jesus did at the beach the other day.
Organized by pastors Mark and Rachel Francie, the couple mobilized more than 500 churches and nearly 30,000 people for a day of worship, baptism, and transformation. Last year, they baptized over 4,000, and now the movement is going national.
The main reason why we did this event in California a month early is so that all of the momentum from people getting excited about what God's doing in California would actually transfer into local churches, that they could host it in their local churches all over America.
Baptize California is becoming Baptize America, urging churches to come together Sunday, June 8th, for what could become the largest coordinated water baptism in U.S. history. And we're seeing a movement of baptisms also taking shape on college campuses, sparked by the growing initiative Unite US. Organizers see what's happening on campus as just the beginning.
I believe that America is set for the greatest revival our nation has ever seen. I believe it's starting with college students, and the hunger and the fire that we're seeing among college students and college campuses is just taking off. It's a movement.
What started in Auburn, Alabama just 2 years ago exploded into a movement, leading to gospel events to at least 11 college campuses this year alone.
It was awesome just having just 10,000 people that all love Jesus and are worshiping God.
From the shores of California to the heart of college campuses, one thing is clear: revival isn't coming. It's already here. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Up next, a push for spiritual readiness, how the Chaplain Corps is bringing transformation to America's military. Welcome back. The Pentagon is addressing a new need in our armed forces, one that leaders call spiritual readiness.
National Security Correspondent Caitlin Burke has the story.
For the first time since the Cold War, the Navy is expanding its Chaplain Corps. This year alone, the goal is to fill 70 active duty slots, a number that would place one chaplain on board every destroyer.
A lot of the bad behaviors, a lot of the evidences of stress are reduced on ships, in units that have chaplains.
Rear Admiral Gregory Todd serves as the Navy's Chief of Chaplains, a position that also covers the Marine Corps and Coast Guard. Over the course of his career, Todd has worked as a chaplain in all three branches, responding to Ground Zero after 9/11 and deploying to both Iraq and Afghanistan.
The funny thing about being a chaplain is the most satisfying moments are in some of the most challenging times, because you're there to bring God into that situation.
With growing mental health issues threatening service members across the board, Todd says chaplains can be the tip of the spear.
We become often first responders for them as they experience some of these stress issues. Some of them are normal stressors of life, and we can help them and normalize those things. But we also work with our partners in the mental health world when something becomes a lot more serious than just a normal stressor.
According to research from Columbia University, Duke, and Harvard, those engaged in spiritual practices are 50 to 80% less likely to die by suicide and 60% less likely to suffer depression. Todd says the Pentagon's decision to grow the Chaplain Corps is part of an effort to better care for people, a new emphasis on what he calls spiritual readiness. Now it's up to him to fill the vacancies, and he's counting on a new generation to answer the call. While a chaplain at Emory University, Lieutenant Commander Saul Burleson says God put military ministry on his heart.
When I looked at the men and women in uniform, what I found was people who were committing their lives to something greater, something greater than themselves. They were serving the Constitution. They were upholding and defending our inalienable rights.
Burleson now serves as a Navy chaplain on the USS Macon Island. While his sailors are similar in age to the college students with whom he once worked, the job responsibilities look quite different.
We're embedded with our sailors, our Marines, our Coast Guardsmen. We serve all the sea services and the men and women in uniform in those, wherever they're at, on board a ship, across the Atlantic or Pacific, with the Marines in a desert or in the Arctic. We're with them wherever they are.
Sometimes I would joke, I'd say, my job is to hang out with you guys as you do your job. But the reality is you're there to spend time, to tell stories, to go to the motor pool, to be there. And then in that life connection, transformation begins to take place. Someone needs time. People go, hey, chaplain, you got a minute? The answer is always yes.
Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Moore is an Army chaplain. After years deploying with soldiers, he now serves as a recruiter for the chaplaincy school at Fort Jackson. As the branch with the largest chaplain corps, Moore says the Army isn't looking to grow, but rather to maintain.
We're looking at recruiting the best qualified. Really, we're looking at about 300 each year. But when you think about all of the qualifications, it is hard to find the best qualified to continue to serve.
Military chaplains are required to meet the same age and physical fitness standards as any other service member. Plus, there's educational requirements, which include a bachelor's degree, a master's in divinity or some area of religion, and then professional ministry experience.
Soldiers give up an awful lot, but they shouldn't have to give up their faith. So we want the best qualified chaplains of all different faith groups.
Second Lieutenant Michael Engelstjert is a candidate at the Army's chaplaincy school. He felt called to minister to soldiers after his own military service. As he goes through the chaplaincy program, he's learning to view the men and women he serves alongside in a much different light.
You know, it's a very different role. And as I'm learning things in seminary and learning about what ministry is, it's like I'm in the same places doing something completely different. And being able to draw on that experience while still having to get used to the new lens of what it means to be a chaplain.
3 decades into his career, Admiral Todd calls caring for the men and women of the armed services a sacred honor and privilege.
I said, okay, Lord, I'll do this for 4 years. I'll do one tour, and that's been over 30 years ago. This flock has a way of getting under your skin. And so then the prayer turned to, Lord, I'll do this as long as you need me to do this, because I love doing it and I'm happy to do that. But I can't decide when to go home. You have to tell me. And so I'm still here until the Navy says, okay, now you have to go home. You're too old. You have to go home now.
While the Navy is currently asking for 70 additional chaplains, Todd anticipates need for even further growth, and the Marine Corps and Coast Guard are expected to follow suit. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Finally this week, an animated film about the life of Jesus has made amazing gains at the box office. King of Kings is based on the Charles Dickens books, where Dickens tells the story of Jesus to his son. Since its release at Easter, it's earned more than $60 million on a $15 million budget, by the way. Produced in South Korea, it's distributed by Angel Studios. On Tuesday, May 27th, it will premiere on Premium Video on demand, available exclusively on Apple TV and Fandango at home. Folks, that is it for this week's edition of Christian World News. Until next week, goodbye and
God bless you.